I am Hannah Hunt, and this is my ethical and legal considerations in sport and exercise science research. So, ethical. This is the moral principles that govern which behaviour is right and wrong. Legal means that an act is within the boundaries of civil law. BASIS is an acronym for British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences, and BASIS create regulations that sports scientists must follow when conducting research. So this is called the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct are rules and responsibilities that are outlined by an organisation. So, for instance, this will include moral codes. These regulations are put in place so that the ethical and professional standards of their members are improved. The BASIS Ethics Committee has the power to make or change the regulations as long as it increases the promotion of research in sport and exercise sciences, the encouragement of evidence-based practice in sport and exercise sciences, the distribution of knowledge and sport in exercise sciences, and the development of maintenance of high professional standards for those involved in sport and exercise sciences, and the representation of the interests of sport and exercise science nationally and internationally. Right, so these are the ethical and legal considerations that will be found within the Code of Conduct, that are necessary. So the Institutional and Ethics Review Committee, this is a group of people tasked with protecting the rights, safety and well-being of people in clinical trials. They have to approve the startup of the research for it to commence. So if a sports scientist want to do a new study, they would have to fill out a very detailed document about their methodology, etc., and they would have to give it to the review committee, and it would either be cleared, it would either be asked to have major amendments or minor amendments, or it would just not be allowed. So then the ethical clearance, this means that the research has been allowed to commence through the ethics committee, which is great news. So risk-benefit analysis, this means that the benefit of the research is better. The benefit of the research to society outweighs the risk of the experiment. There are also volunteers, so this means that no participant is coerced into taking part in the study. Respect means that participants in the study are not treated badly or bullied. Informed consent, this is participants know what the experiment is and why it's being done, including the risk involved. This is very important. Research responsibility. So the researcher is responsible for their self and their participants' well-being. They act professionally and are not biased towards any participant. Confidentiality and anonymity. This means that no personal information about a participant is made public. Now, similarly, data protection means that participants are made unidentifiable, which is very important. So, right to withdraw. Participants are aware that they can stop the research at any time. Now, it's all well and good them being able to stop the research at any time, but they have to know that they're allowed to. They have to be told before the research begins. So, there's also a health and medical screening disclaimer. So, this means that it's safe for the participants to be involved in the research, and there will also be a risk assessment. So, this will minimise any risks that are any potential risks to the lowest degree. And deception. So this means that the whole truth about the research is made known to the participant. There is no lie. They're not being told, oh yes, we're studying one thing, and then actually end up doing something completely different. So it also needs to be in law. So no law is broken whilst the research is going on. So for instance, nothing is stolen for the research. Right, scientific misconduct. So this means that there's no bias with the results. The data is not changed to make it say the desired outcome. This is completely truthful. So, we have a code of conduct because after the Second World War, people discovered what the Nazis were doing. They were carrying out these awful, abusive research experiments on the Jews in concentration camps. They were subjected to such awful and inhumane experiments. This included things like being submerged into different extreme temperatures to see at which point they would faint or die. So in 1947, the Nuremberg Code was put in place to stop this from happening again. So as you can see, those are the 10 points. And a little bit later, a modified version of this code of conduct came about. So in 1964, the World Medical Association created the Declaration of Helsinki. This document is regarded as the cornerstone of human research ethics. So it includes statements such as, the health of my participant will be my first consideration. Right, so I'm not going to read out the scenarios because I don't have time, but you can read it yourself. Right, so the good practice from this. The research is being done to aid the gymnast's skill development. This is very important, well, because they want to be better. It also benefits the coaches to focus on their weak teaching areas. This is, once again, important for them to improve themselves, to be able to improve the gymnastics. So, yes, the benefit of this questionnaire is good. And there is no scientific misconduct, because basically they need to know the results. They're doing this so that they can become better coaches. The bad practice, though, there's a lot more of that. So there's little data protection. The results are not being published, however, they are being shared within the coaches themselves. The participants are not volunteers, they are being told to do it. They are being coerced. And they are not told about their right to withdraw. They are not told that they do not have to fill out the questionnaire. So the respect, that's an issue, because the data may cause bias towards the gymnastics. A coach/researcher may not like the results and now treat them differently because of it. So research responsibility, that is also similar. Data may cause bias towards the gymnasts. Now, there's no informed consent. They are not told out why they're filling the questionnaire out. So that's an issue. And also, there's no parental consent. You need parental consent if you're under 18 to be involved in research. And there's no ethical clearance. This has not been given to the ethics committee. So, to rectify this, basically, you need to not do any of those things. So, you need to protect their data. You can't have... You could make it anonymous. That would make it so much better. The participants are told that they can do it, that they don't have to, that it would just help them. Just common sense, really. They also need to be told that within the study, within the questionnaire, while they're filling it out, they could stop doing it. If they come across a question that makes them feel uncomfortable, they can stop. They also need to have more respect. So anonymity would fix this issue. If it was anonymous, the data will not cause bias towards the gymnasts. So that goes ahead with the one below. And there's no right, so basically they need to know why they're filling out the questionnaire so that it would help the coaches to become better. And they need to get parental consent, and they need to go to the ethics board. So the consequences of the research, it's not the worst case scenario in the world, so it's not too bad. They would get ethical training and they may lose professional credibility, but nothing more than that, really. Participant, they may get psychological harm because if the data goes ahead, they may be treated differently afterwards, and the fact that they've been lied to. So the bias afterwards, and that they've been lied to, and social harm. They're being compared to their other gymnasts, and they may get bias towards them, or their friends might. So they may be treated differently in the end result. So this one, so scenario 2, it's good because it will benefit the gymnasts. Their flexibility will improve, which in the long run will help them out in their future career as gymnasts. And it is legal. It is not illegal, so that's fine. And they are informed. They do not have informed consent, however, but they know why it is being done. However, they did not agree to it, so that's halfway there. Bad practice, however, the gymnasts are not volunteered. They are forced to do this, and they do not have a right to withdraw. Now, the researcher, needs to tell them that they do not have to do it, that it will help them, and that it will help them to become better gymnasts because flexibility is important, but if they become uncomfortable, if it hurts too much, they can stop. He needs to do that to rectify this. There's no respect. He calls them rude names. Well, he just needs to not do that because that's awful. And there's no parental consent. It's quite a risky thing to be doing on young children. So this could be an issue for some parents, so they need to ask the parents before this tactic is carried out. And there's no research responsibility. The researcher is not looking out for the well-being of his participants. They complain it hurts, and he does not stop. So he needs to ask them if it hurts while he's doing it, and if they need to stop. That would be better. Right, so consequence of this: ethical training, professional credibility loss, reprimand. This means that they get a warning. They could be suspended, or he could lose his job, and there could be law or prison sentences depending on if the parents take this to court, because really the child is in pain, he's abusing them basically, and it could be seen differently. It could get misconstrued what he was actually doing. There is problematic issues that could arise that may or may not be truthful. So there's the participant, they get psychological harm, they're being called names, it's affecting them, it's not fair. And physical harm, it's hurting them, it could injure them eventually if he goes too far with it. Right, so scenario 3. This is good because they have the right to withdraw. It's not that brilliant because if they do withdraw, they have to go home. They're not allowed to continue on with their gymnastics lesson, which means they lose money and they lose in a day of training. So that's not great, but at least they're allowed to withdraw. There is no deception. They are told at the beginning that they are allowed, that what is going to happen, and it is not illegal. Right, however, there's bad practice, and the whole thing is awful, and it would not be cleared. So there is bias and no respect. The gymnasts are being treated badly, they're getting jeered at and encouraged to, and they're being taken out of the crowd. They are being said, you are the worst. So you can't rectify that. The whole experiment would not be allowed. There is no parental consent. Not many parents would consent to this, however, some would, but they all need the consent. So there's no confidentiality. Everyone knows who's good, who's bad. So they need confidentiality, but that wouldn't happen in this experiment. And there's no ethical clearance. This would not be cleared. So consequences. There would be quite a few consequences. You would get ethical training, professional credibility loss, reprimand or suspension. You could lose your job, and you would lose your BASIS accreditation, especially for going ahead with the experiment without even asking them to do it. So the participants would get psychological harm. They're being bullied. They think they're bad at gymnastics now because they are the worst. They're being forced to run laps because of it. They may not want to come back. It may ruin their future career. And social harm. They're being compared to their peers. It's not good. They're made to feel bad. So scenario 4. This benefits society as it shows how well caffeine tablets work and if they're a waste of money, basically. So that's good. And the data is protected in this instance, which is also a good factor. Confidentially and anonymity, no one knows who it is. They just got data, quantitative data, and there is no scientific misconduct. However, bad practice. The gymnasts are not volunteers. They are told to do it. To fix this, yes, they need to be asked, do you want to do this? Do you want to take part in our experiment? However, they've not been. So, there's no right to withdraw. They have to do it. So, they need to be told that they can withdraw to rectify this, and there's no parental consent. Parents need to be warned and give their consent for them to be able to do this. There's no research responsibility. They are not looking out for the well-being, because they're being forced to do it to exhaustion. Tumbling is quite dangerous. If they're doing it to exhaustion, they may go wrong. It could be very dangerous. And there's no health screening also, which is potentially dangerous. Caffeine tablets, if you have high blood pressure, that would not work well with the gymnast doing it. So that is an issue. And there's also no informed consent. They do not know what they're doing, why they're doing. They do not know that they are having a caffeine tablet, and there is deception so that they don't know the caffeine tablet, and there's no research responsibility, which I've already said. So in addition to all the previous ones that I've explained before, they could be sued. This is because they haven't had a health screening test. They could be potentially dangerous for them, and they could be fined. So that's bad law stuff. And there's physical harm. Yes, very bad for the gymnast, because it would really hurt them. So yeah, the fines could be done by law if it's taken to court, and physical harm, they could injure themselves, and the tablet could be very bad for their health. Thank you.